Welcome to another edition of World Talks here on TVP World. I'm your host, Benjamin Lee, and please join me and my guests on this next interview. Poland's Foreign Minister Radosław Sikorski has proposed the creation of a European Legion, a brigade-sized force made up of soldiers from European Union member states and candidate countries as a more realistic alternative to a full European army. The proposal comes amid growing debates over Europe's ability to defend itself. Joining us today on World Talks Live is retired Colonel Vaidotas Malinionis, founder and managing director of the National Defense Foundation. Hello and welcome to TVP World.
Hello, thank you for inviting.
So we're looking at this recent statement made by Foreign Minister Radosław Sikorski about the idea of a European Legion. And my question is it a practical step forward, or do you think this is more of a counter-narrative to Kubilius's call for a more centralized European army?
I think all options must be, overviewed because definitely the security situation has changed since 2022 drastically, yes, and new measures, new capabilities, and more capabilities are needed. Plus, countries are raising their budgets, so Radosław Sikorski's proposal to establish European Legion, which would be brigade-sized formation, sounds probably okay, because establishing federal forces, yes, would be a little bit tricky, because it could look like a duplication of NATO and NATO procedures, and countries who are member states of NATO, yes, they anyway will have to allocate probably the same troops to NATO and to EU formations, and that wouldn't raise any more capabilities. So probably this step, which was proposed by Radosław Sikorski, is good, because first of all, it's not duplication of NATO. The Legion would have clear tasks, yes, and of course it's not initially it looks like it's not devoted for the big war, but for small engagements. Mitigation of maybe some kind of peace support operations and so on. But nevertheless, interesting message that this legion could be formatted not only from from citizens of European Union members, but also from candidates, which means that Ukrainians can also would be also eligible to be part in this legion, and that is interesting. And of course, I think it is good, because Ukrainians, they have very good battle experience, and that knowledge would be implemented and used at the European Union level. Of course, that would be the first real formation, even small, but at least something, and that would be the precedent for the further step if needed. If, for example, global order is collapsing, so this initial step, I think, probably is sufficient.
Right, like you mentioned, this is mostly targeted as smaller scale operation for the time being, and we do have the statement from the foreign minister. Let's take a look.
I think it is pointless to talk about a federal army because it is unrealistic, because there will be no merging of national armies. On the other hand, we could create I call it the European Legion. This is already in the European Parliament's resolutions. For a start, it would be a brigade-sized unit in which citizens of the member states and perhaps candidate countries could enroll, in which the rules for the use of arms were agreed, which would be politically subordinate to the Security and Foreign Affairs Council, and which would be financed from the European budget. That would not be a force capable of deterring Putin, but there are lower-level dangers, such as in North Africa or the Balkans, where we should have the capacity to act collectively. And I think this deteriorating international security situation around Europe makes this idea more urgent than ever.
So I think there's a lot of pros and cons when it comes to the particular idea, but the foreign minister himself pointed out a very big glaring issue about it not being something that could deter Putin. And like you mentioned, we're looking at the collapsing of a global order, and perhaps what triggered a lot of people's talking about having a federalized European Union army is with the mind of deterring itself from Russia. Do you think that this idea, this European army in formation of the foreign minister's suggestion could eventually scale up to something more substantial, or do you think it'll still be very much limited by the capacity of the European Union?
You know, everything starts from small steps. I think if the European Union decides to have that small legion, it is already military formation, yes, and if it is well established and well proved and command control is clear, then of course it would be easier even to move to federalization of European armed forces if needed. And that step is actually will teach European nations and citizens to move to that direction. I also would like to tell you one example. When Lithuania, when we regained our independence in 90s, we didn't have armed forces immediately. We started with a training center, yes, which is also a small step. And after that, it was developed Iron Wolf Brigade, and also in parallel, we developed other forces. So this is first step is always important, I think. And immediately jumping to federalization, as Kubilius proposing, well, maybe it is possible, but maybe it is too fast. Plus, there are risks of duplication of NATO, and there are a lot of questions which are unanswered, yes. Because as I mentioned before, that nations wouldn't allocate separate people for two organizations. Would be the same units. One day the same battalion will be under NATO flag, another day will be under European flag. So it's a duplication, and countries right now do not have capacity to increase drastically their armed forces, especially personnel, because training is needed, and even allocation of resources doesn't help fast and too much speed for the increasement numbers of troops.
Right, like you mentioned, even Kaja Kallas herself has mentioned the issue with, taking a more softer stance against this idea and standing with NATO. I think a lot of consideration is to not overlap when it comes to responsibility comes NATO. Will this idea realistically operate without overlapping or undermining NATO, though, if it seeks to eventually expand into something more substantial?
Yes, in this case, when we are talking about the European Legion, and right now, if we are talking only about brigade-sized unit, which will be subordinate to political and security of commission. So in this case, there is no duplication, and I think our NATO other members wouldn't see this as a duplication. So I think this step is wise in order it's not contradicting to common perceptions, but nevertheless, it's a good seed for the further development if it is successfully implemented.
Right. So either way, it does seem like Europe is taking a step towards a more compact and robust type of defense as well. Thank you so much for your input and insight. Really appreciate it. And thanks for being with us on TVP World.
Thank you.
And thank you for tuning into this edition of World Talks. But for more news, update, and commentary, please stay tuned to TVP World.